when when did you start watching anime? Like when did it like was the first episode or first show that you watched that was like, oh, this
Yeah,
I want to continue enjoying and watching and
yeah.
yeah.
Now, I hate to say it, but I think Sword Art Online is I have to say embarrassingly is my first anime, and I think that's the experience for a lot of us who watch anime and grew up in like the 2010s. That Sword Art Online was our first anime. I think that's the reason why, like, because I'm aware of older people I know Giguk and Mother's Basement. Those are like the two other channels. Oh, and the Anime Man.
Mhm.
Those kind of channels, they were from the early 2000s, right? So they've been really delving into anime for a very very long time, and it was very easy for them to say Sword Art Online bad. And I think that is true, right? If now after having watched a few of the animes from the 2000s, yeah, they're really really good, and then here comes Sword Art Online, which is absolute trash. But it's the first, yeah, it's the first like exposure that a lot of us in the 2010s really had to anime. And there's just something so cool about oh, it's sword fighting, it's VR,
Mhm.
it's the future, right? There's something so cool about that. And nowadays, I don't look at Sword Art Online like, oh wow, it's this masterpiece like I did before.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it for like, oh hey, it's my first anime, and that's why I like it. It's because it's my first anime, and I look at it with the nostalgia goggles. Um, so there was that, and I still remember when I was younger when my mom, because my mom works at the local library,
Okay.
and she used to borrow like Studio Ghibli films on DVD because they're like family friendly,
Yeah.
and they're yeah. So um, that's also one of my first exposures to anime, which was yeah, that's Studio Ghibli as well. Now, um, I still remember like one of my an older gentleman actually. It was quite surprising to me because he's been a family friend of ours. He also introduced me to Anime Lab, and that's like Crunchyroll for Australians.
Yeah.
When Anime Lab was still around, it's not around anymore because it's been bought out by Funimation, and you have to watch through Funimation now. But I still remember when that existed for Australians to watch anime through. Um, and yeah, I think one of the my first experiences to say, "Wow, anime is fantastic." It wasn't Studio Ghibli, it wasn't Sword Art Online. Although those like introduced me to anime, I think it was my first time watching 5 centimeters per second, which is
Okay.
still yeah, it's still my favorite Makoto Shinkai film, even though Your Name is also good. But 5 centimeters per second was certainly like the first like wow, anime is really really cool, and I do want to continue watching it. Um, and yeah, I think I'll also talk about my anime experience in high school as well because that's relevant to the video that you just recently released.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah.
I guess even I break putting the question together, like what was this is all kind of gonna come
Mm,
together as like what was it like watching anime kind of coming through the Christian background, right?
mm,
Watching anime from that and also growing up watching anime, what was the experience like? Was it a good experience? Was it a bad experience? Was it like, oh, like
right.
people around you, did they not like if you watch anime, you were like why are you watching that stuff? Like
Yeah,
what
yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's a level of which because yeah, when I was a lot younger, I think I did take Christianity a bit seriously in terms of oh hey, no, I probably shouldn't watch anime, which is gonna cause me to sin, right? So I think there's that. Um, but I think like God works in wonderful ways because when I was starting high school, just for context, guys, I know in America you have like a different school system, but here in Australia, it's primary school, which is grades 1 to 6, and then it's just high school from grade 7 to 12. So it's
okay.
there's no middle school, right? So when I first entered high school, one of my friends, I think he was a serious Muslim at the time, so he wouldn't like recommend me like ecchi anime or like really bad anime. He would recommend me a good anime to watch. um and yeah, he was I'll refer to him as my dealer because he got anime through like he got anime through unscrupulous means.
Got
and I'm sure you can kind of guess where he got it from.
yeah.
Not legally, to say the least. um, so yeah, I think it was just me and him and like one other guy who watched anime. And I think one of my first like um now I'm quite happy that my identity is found in Christ, right? But I think back then that was my identity, which is I was this guy who watched anime, and I'm glad I was in a classroom which didn't really bully me for that, but they were like, oh hey, yeah, that guy watches anime, that's pretty
Mm,
cool. And I still remember some of my uh, two friends, really close friends in high school that um, they didn't watch anime and they would get
yeah.
annoyed every time I mentioned it. And it's really funny because as we grew older together, I think I did start like not watching anime through the middle of high school, but at the end of high school, I got right into it
Mm,
again. And it was really funny to see those two friends who used to really hate anime now really like they watch anime now. They have like the posters of they have anime girls on posters.
yeah.
I know a friend who just read like pirated manga on during class while we were supposed to be studying. I just saw him reading pirated manga off of there. And yeah, it was really cool to see my friends like really do the complete 180 and start really consuming and watching anime. And I think that was kind of the same in my whole class, where there was this greater awareness of anime. And while some of them weren't as like devoted to it as I was or as my friends, but there was like this increased awareness. Which yeah, I think that's one of the good things about the internet and living in this internet age. It's because we do get we do gain exposure to all those sorts of things. So yeah, definitely.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you ever like you like nudge them and be like, hey, I put you onto that. Like you're now cool now. Like do you ever get like that or is it like nah like
No, like we don't. Unfortunately, we don't talk to each other as much anymore. But I think I did mention to them like I still remember vaguely in my mind. We did have a conversation like, oh hey, remember when I was the only guy who and this was me and that other guy who just watched anime, and now like literally everyone watches it. So yeah, it was really cool to see. And I think there's one of the things which Giguk says, which I am quite I quite connect to, uh, which is that I think a lot of people did want it to be mainstream, right? So there's certainly I think there will always be those people who are like, oh no, like anime shouldn't be mainstream, and I think there's a lot of people who do complain about that. But there are people like me who are like, oh hey, look at how good anime is, and I
Mhm.
want to spread it as much as possible throughout throughout everywhere really. And I want it to gain like the the respect it deserves basically. I'm less of that now because I do want to be more Christian, right? Like Christ is always my identity will be now in Christ, and I do want Christ to be known.
Yeah,
And that'll I can do that through speaking about anime. But yeah, definitely when I was younger, I really felt that. And I feel a lot of people in the anime community now do feel like, oh, hey, we are finally getting the respect we deserve. Like anime is now mainstream.
yeah,
So yeah, I really do share in that sentiment
yeah.
in the community.
That's amazing. Really quickly, I kind of want to get your perspective.
Mm,
Sort of just like from the few people there aren't many, right? I don't see many
yeah.
comments of people saying that anime they're like they hate that anime is that's mainstream now, but there are those few, right, that are just like this is annoying that anime is mainstream because we used to get made fun of and stuff like that.
Mm,
One guy in that I did my recent video that he was like kind of in that space. um
yeah.
no shade towards him, but it's like, where do you think that comes from? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I think there are it there's a level of which like of course they do want to, I think they want to relive their there's a level of which that they want to relive their childhood where they watched anime and um they weren't like bullied for it. And I think there's that level of that. But at the same time, I do recognize there is one issue of modern anime which I do recognize, which is I know in the 2000s, in the early 2010s, there was like only one or two anime that released each season.
Yeah.
And nowadays we have all the anime in the world, and like half of them are probably going to be bad, right?
Yeah.
And I think yeah, yeah. So I think that's where that's where that person is kind of coming from. It's like
Mm.
it's because when it wasn't mainstream, like you got all of these, like every anime you watch was basically good. Um, However, nowadays it's like you kind of have to think about what are you gonna watch. Even though we have so much anime now, there's a level of which like not all of them are going to be good. And I think that's where that person is coming from. That they want to reminisce to the good old days when anime was used to be good. Not to say like there are some absolutely brilliant anime that's being released now. Like Oshinoko this season has been popping off. I do love that. Um, but yeah, there's that feeling that hey, it used to be the case that every anime was good, but nowadays like you're forcing me to pick and choose and think critically about
Yeah.
which anime to watch.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely that feeling which I sense from that coming from that person. So
Got you. So it's a little bit of like nostalgia, kind of a little bit of like, this is this for me, but also just like kind of this the rare variety of sorry, my wife just brought me a charger. uh,
nice.
so this the plethora of anime that's out there. It's sort of like, dang, there's just so much to consume, but it's also kind of like, is it kind of have to discern whether or not it's like worth watching? Is it good? And I don't know. I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
I guess moving on, like what made you want to start a Christian anime channel? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What was that? What was that like?
Mm. Um, oh, I'm terribly sorry. My computer fan is now screaming right now, and
No, it's okay.
I
We're a little bit
all good, all good.